All right. Do not allow your money lenders to do this to you if you are the borrower. My name is Rich Lane. Welcome to Growing the Money, where we talk about how to grow our money every morning from 9 to 9:10. We just talk about lending money, how to make money, understanding the taxes. It's what we do. We're talking here every day. Today, I'm going to try to answer some questions that were asked of me in my group on Tuesday. God, that was only yesterday. On my group on Tuesday, where I felt like I got a bunch of questions and I kind of wanted to answer them right here. I feel like that'd be good for everybody. All right, no coffee. I've already been up for like 3 hours. I've had my cups of coffee. I can't have any more. Okay. All right. I want to talk about this that I have seen. It's happened locally in my community a couple times now with a couple lenders. I'm not sure if the lenders don't understand this and they're just ignorant of these rules, or if they're getting one over on their borrowers, which is also a possibility. I don't know. I've tried to help in this situation a couple times, but it's tough to get help. So I'm going to educate you here ahead of time so that you know what it's all about. All right. You cannot charge double penalties on a note. And I see a rising number of lenders that are doing this. And I want to make the borrowers aware that you're not allowed to do this. It can make a severely impact your payoff statement. And I want to let the lenders know that you can't do this. It's immoral and it's unlawful in almost every state. So if you have built into your loan default penalties, which I hope you do have default penalties, and you have penalties for going into default. I personally have a 10% penalty for going into default. If you go into default, there's 10% penalty. But you're not allowed to charge interest on a penalty. The penalty is the penalty. You're not then allowed to go create interest on it. Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about. So let's say that you borrow $100,000 and it goes into default in month 6 and you charge a 10% default penalty. You are not allowed to then go charge interest, particularly a default interest, on $110,000. You're only allowed to charge the interest on the principal. The principal is what the interest is charged against. You don't get to stack the penalties up and then charge interest on top of the penalties. This is a way for some of the lenders to massively boost their return. And if you have, let's say that you go into default early on because you have a payment. You have to make a monthly payment and then you're late on your payment. Don't do that. That's bad. But then you go into default, so you have a default penalty that goes on early on in this loan. Sometimes what happens is the borrower will put you in default, charge you that penalty, and then charge you interest on the penalty amount for the duration of a loan. And I will tell you, this can sometimes even double the amount of payoff that you will have to pay. That little, I'm not going to call it a trick, that little miscalculation, let's be generous, that little miscalculation is not permitted, and you can't do that. And it really is, I've really seen a couple local borrowers in the last year or so get in trouble with this, where they're expecting payoffs in the $20,000-$25,000 range. Instead, they're getting payoffs in the $35,000 to $40,000 range. And it's because they're being charged interest on the penalty that's already been applied. You can't do that. If that is the case, you need to get an attorney. If your borrower doesn't, excuse me, if your lender doesn't understand that, you as a borrower have a right to push back on that. Make sure you do. You can also contact your local state government and you can get them involved. Not all attorneys understand this. And by the way, I want to throw this out there. It doesn't matter if you write that is okay in your note, right? If you write the note in the deed of trust such that it says that you can do that, you're still not allowed to do it via state regulations in almost all the states, including the one that I'm sitting in right here in Virginia. So just because something is written in a note doesn't mean that it's correct. And I tell you this as the borrower to inform you so that you don't get kind of rolled over by some of these less than transparent lenders. Most lenders are transparent, but there are a couple bad actors that I've seen this, and it is wildly impactful on the payoffs, and I want you to make sure that you understand it. Another thing that is not unethical, but I wanted you to understand why they do it. I want you to understand why the lenders are doing their funding in this manner. They are trying to increase their yield. There's nothing unethical about this. I want you to understand this is what is happening. Let's say that you are, again, you're going to borrow $100,000 and you're going to pay 13% and 3 points, which is what I like to charge. But you take the points out in the beginning. And so instead of you borrowing $100,000, but I only send, in this scenario, I only send $97,000 to the closing. So what I'm doing there as a lender, and I don't do this personally because I don't like it, but it doesn't mean it's unethical, but I want you to understand what is happening here. What is happening is now they are charging you 13% on $100,000, but they only gave you $97,000. So their return, their internal, the lender's internal return goes from like a 13% to something like 14.5% over the course of the loan because of the way that this money is distributed. And so it's what's happening, and that's why I like to charge points at the end, because I think everybody should get 100% of their funding. And I just think it's a little bit misleading to tell someone you're going to give them $100,000 at 13 and 3 when in fact you're going to give them $97,000 at that 13%, which is increasing your yield, which is why the lender does it. All right, I just want to explain that. All right, and the next one that I got up in my question today, not today, I got yesterday, was I had some confusion within my group about the cash flow of a closing and how that works. And I just thought I would take a moment to explain. Now, when I do a fractionalized note, I have two lenders in the deal. And so this is how the cash flow situation works. So oftentimes you will have to send money for the closing, but you'll also have a renovation loan as part of the loan. So the way I personally do it, and this is the way I recommend you do it, although it's slightly more expensive, creating the correct paper trail is important to be able to prove things later should something go amiss. But what we do is if we have a $200,000 funding deal, the money goes from the lazy money to the closing attorney and from Rich Lennon's money to the closing attorney. Then we put the money together and lend it out as one unit. All right, so the money goes into the attorney, and so they wire into the attorney. Now there's often a renovation budget associated with that. So let's say in this scenario, we had $50,000 in renovation budget. That money will be wired back to Rich Lennon's escrow account. Why is it an escrow account? Only because I put the word escrow on it. So it's just an LLC account that I manage. Obviously, I wouldn't do this if this was my IRA. This is obviously LLC money. The money would come back into my account. Now, for me, that's a different account. I use my LLC to wire out the money, but when I take it back from the attorney, I don't want to mingle that money with my own LLC money, even if I mingle it for a day and then move it to another sub account. I don't like to do that. I like to have the attorney wire the money directly into my escrow account that I hold and manage and keep rigorous track of. Then when I need a construction draw, I take the money from the escrow account and direct it directly to my borrower, and I send it to him, whether it be an ACH, whether it be a check, whether it be a wire, and I just do the business with the escrow account. Once the closing occurs, so the borrower has borrowed the money, they've renovated the property, they put it on the market, they put it under contract, now it is selling to a retail buyer. I make the payoff, and my lazy money makes a payoff. We send those things to the attorney. The attorney sends two separate wires. One wire to Rich Lennon, not to Rich Lennon's escrow. It goes back to Rich Lennon's original LLC company. And the other wire goes back to the LLC or the IRA of my lazy money. So there it is. That's how the cash flows. And those are the couple questions that I got in my group that I felt like maybe everybody else would be interested in. Tonight, Richmond Ring. What are we going? Tonight, Great American Ranch starts at 6:30. Education starts at 7. Philip Ty is talking tonight. He's going to give us his unique takes on some of the things that he does when he's flipping homes. Philip is a longtime investor in the local market, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say. And I also have broken down the big, beautiful bill and the things that I think are important in the bill. And yep, we're going to talk about it. And if there's time, I don't know if there will be, but I'm going to talk about real estate professional status. And that's to get prepared for Vern Schmidt, who's going to come in August and tell us all about cost segregation, bonus depreciation. My name is Rich Lennon. You can find me at richlennon.com. Download the Smarter Wealth Blueprint. I'm at 9.5 minutes. I gots to go. Everybody have a great day.